Hello there, welcome to the Football Block. My name is Brandon, and today we are joined to have yet another episode of the Weekend Roundup, yet another episode of News Bits. Although this week I am joined here with a guest. We have Oscar, who is regular pundit on the Football Block. He is here today. Oscar, say hello.
Hello, everyone. This is Oscar, pure vibes analyst, here to talk about a very high-scoring weekend of games, if you ask me, and very, bottom half showing the, Champions League or like European contenders in their league, like what they can actually do. It's a very unpredictable weekend, if you ask me. But I'm really happy to talk about it.
Yeah. And without further ado, let's start off in the Premier League. Let's start off with the first game here. We're going to talk about Crystal Palace going up against Liverpool. Liverpool playing away from home. They did come away with the win, but it was certainly not easy. But history was made in this game. Mohamed Salah, his equalizer. This was his 200th goal for Liverpool. He has been having a really good season. I think he's been flying under the radar. I've said this a few times before on the channel. But the match was interesting in that Crystal Palace actually scored first with a penalty. But Jordan Ayew got a red card, and then only 1 minute later, Salah scored that aforementioned equalizer with Harvey Elliott scoring in the 91st minute to win the match there. Oscar, what did you think of this match, or I guess in general, Mohamed Salah's time at Liverpool, or maybe in particular this season?
Right. So to go in from the match to the broader context, I think this match is it was a scraper. It's usually tended to play that way. Crystal Palace, I kind of have this joke that I've never seen them win live, yet they always finish between 10th and 13th for some reason.
It's very true.
This season, but no. And then, dude, Salah just keeps on, showing that he should be talked about in the all-time Premier League best wingers. And I grew up with Giggs, Nani, so on and so forth, but we don't put him in this conversation properly, and I think it's about time to recognize that he's been the main staple of his team for a very long time. And look, he had a rough start in the Premier League. Chelsea, as we know, is not the most fruitful team for youth, but he came back and he's broken records for club and country, so I think he will continue to do it. Many people were saying that when he was offered, I believe he's now the club's highest earner, and he's on this new multi-year contract that it was just the wrong choice. No, I think he can carry this on well into his 30s. He's doing it now, and he has shown no sign of slowing down. I think Liverpool overall, it's not just about this game. I think they were really happy to see the result later on, which had Arsenal losing to Aston Villa, which put them top of the table. And not because they had, it was not down to having one more game in hand. Each team has played 16 games now, so Liverpool being 1 point ahead at this point, probably, I don't want to say it this way too early, but I think Arsenal can start kissing goodbye to their Premier League hopes, because once Liverpool's in the mix, Man City I don't expect to be in this slump for too long. I think it's less about Liverpool's victory and more about what this means for the other teams in the top four. I think Arsenal, particularly here, hated this result more than anyone else.
Yeah, I do agree. Especially considering that Crystal Palace took the lead relatively late in the match as well. Elsewhere on Saturday, we had Brighton tying Burnley 1-1. Another positive result for Burnley, considering they started the season so terribly. They're coming off their win from last week. This was a good result for them, not the best result for Brighton on the other hand. But the two highlight matches in the Premier League for Saturday was, of course, Man United going up against Bournemouth and Aston Villa versus Arsenal. Now, going into this week, maybe you wouldn't expect these games to be the highlight matches for the day, but Oscar, let us know what happened here. What was explain the craziness that happened in these two matches.
Okay, so something that I still can't understand here. So just for the full preface, Man United lost to Bournemouth 3-0, and they didn't even have a chance. So what did I see in this game? Luke Shaw cannot play center back, and Rafael Varane was not even subbed in this game. Clearly has a feud with the coach. He has shown that he wants to leave, but I don't think playing Luke Shaw as a left center back is going to solve that issue. Amrabat looked a little bit better in the midfield than he usually does. I mean, again, it always helps being played as a box to box as opposed to a left back. And when it comes to the goals, Onana messed up on two of the headers. I think he could have reacted better to them. Those headers being, one of them came from Billing, and the other one came from Marco Sensi. I think it's his second goal of the season. And Bournemouth could have made this 5-0. Actually, they had one goal disallowed late on in like the 92nd minute due to VAR. Man United, I think, look, there are so many results in every season which have me thinking that this has to be the end for Man U. Like, they have to sack the coach, or like they really need to turn this around. It's been this cycle for the past 2 or 3 seasons. So I don't think this is enough to fire the coach, but I don't think that this is the motivating factor you need going into a European week where you take on Bayern Munich at home. Because if you couldn't solve this with Bournemouth at home, you're not going to do it with the Bayern that wants to make sure that they clinch top of their group, and would honestly rather have you just not go through after you gave them a very exciting performance 3-3 at their home in the first week of the Champions League. So, personally speaking, Man U showed no life. They're playing players out of position, and this in combination with what I think will be a loss to Bayern Munich should probably be the end of Ten Hag's reign as Man U coach.
Yeah, it's not looking good for Ten Hag. I mean, I think United had a good performance against Chelsea at the midweek, but how much of that was just due to both Chelsea going through their own issues versus United actually being, a team going in the right direction? I think, with these very important matches coming up within the next few weeks, I fully agree this could be the end of Ten Hag. On the other end of the spectrum, though, we have a team who maybe didn't have as high expectations as Man United, but are fully exceeding those expectations with Aston Villa overcoming Arsenal here. Oscar, explain what happened in this game. Was this Aston Villa having a wonderful performance, or is this Arsenal choking?
So I view it as one of two ways. So I think Arsenal regret every day selling what used to be their fifth string goalie, and now seeing Emmy become a World Cup champion,
El Dibu,
and beating them. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy that they ever sold him to me. I mean, was he at Bernd Leno standards back then? Honestly, when he came in, I think he came in during the COVID season, if I remember correctly. He was class. He was class in the cup. He was class in the league when he had to do it. And he was class in this game. He made many, many good saves. It's not like Arsenal didn't have a chance. But I think what this game proved is that Arsenal don't have the squad depth in order to be league champions. The players just looked tired. They were trying to create chances seemingly out of thin air. And when they did get to it, they faced a brick wall in Aston Villa's back line and Emi Martinez. Aston Villa are, a team playing in the Europa Conference League now, firmly in Champions League spots. And to be fair, they are doing it with what is on paper a very mid-table or upper mid-table team. But Unai Emery has shown, who used to coach Arsenal back in the day, he has shown that he's learned a lot from his first Premier League stint, and I think he's really making this team his own. So overall, I would say that I don't think the game was lopsided, and I don't think Arsenal lost out of viewing Aston Villa as lesser than them or anything. But I just don't think that Arsenal has the squad depth to keep going. And clearly, the summer signings that they made were not ones in areas that they particularly needed the most. Rice had a good game. I do think that he was Arsenal's best summer signing, but Havertz playing in this left center mid role, which he's done better in than the false nine or right wing position that they've tried to play him in, has not shown the same class that he did when he played for Bayer Leverkusen back in the day. So overall, Arsenal, I did say earlier that they can kiss the, winning their first Premier League title in, how many years has it been? 19 years since they last won it?
Yeah, 2004.
Yeah, so it's going to be going on 20 years. I did say that they could kiss the opportunity by, but it's not fully over. They are down 1 point. I think they can bounce back. They have a Champions League game midweek, and they should be going through in their group. Maybe that news will sort of give them the bounce back going into one more round of Premier League games, and then a holiday/mini international break that'll come in between. They have time to bounce back. I don't think this game should be worrying them too much. And they have a little bit more breathing space given the fact that Newcastle has been spiraling down the table and Tottenham has had a little stretch of bad form and they're trying to pick it up again. But they have room. They clearly have the talent, but I think that a few more rotation signings in the winter are definitely due in order.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it'll be interesting to see how this season turns out because it is. I think this season is going to be. It already is very fun to watch, and I think it's going to continue being so because you think about this time last year, you had Arsenal at the top of the table, and you had this looming shadow of Man City coming up behind them, and you kind of just it felt inevitable that they would eventually wheel away, and Arsenal would kind of collapse, which eventually did happen and could very well still happen this season with Man City having their famous run of form from April to May. But Liverpool is in the picture now, and then you also have to talk about Aston Villa. Of course, they're in third. Who knows if they can keep it up. But speaking of Man City, they had a very peculiar game, a 2-1 win over Luton Town. A game that Luton Town actually scored first right at the stroke of halftime, and it required 2 goals that were about 2 to 3 minutes apart from both Bernardo Silva and Jack Grealish to come from behind in the second half to win 2-1. Now, if you just look at the stats, this looks like a typical Luton Town game where they had 34% possession, only 4 shots. So it seemed like it was just that type of performance, but Man City was able to come away with the win, and I think this just further goes to show that while they might not be in the best form, they're still winning games. They're winning the games that they need to win. And if they have any chance of winning the Premier League to defend their title, it's going to start with games like this. You can just see the class oozing from this team. Even with not the best performance, they still come away with the win here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think one of the biggest takeaways that people aren't talking about is the fact that Jack Grealish scored. Jack Grealish, if I remember correctly, only has 2 goals and 1 assist this season, which for a £100 million player, you would expect a lot more. I mean, yes, this was against lower. This is a Luton Town that got promoted to the Premier League through the playoff in the Championship. They have the smallest stadium in the entire league. So I'm not trying to downgrade his goal or what it means, but generally speaking, Grealish is a rotation player at Man City, and it's sort of seems privileged to have a £100 million rotation player. But hopefully this gets him going because he's going to need it going into the Euros next year, and Man City are still involved in many competitions. Particularly the Champions League and the Premier League title. So hopefully this helps him pick up some form. I think Pep Ball is still working out. I mean, he is still finding a way to rotate all his players and get them all time. I'm surprised that actually hasn't led to more locker room drama. But everyone's seeming to have fun. They still love playing the game. I do think that this game was too close for liking. But overall, I don't think Man City is worried about it. They do need to pick up more wins on the bounce. And they have 2 titles that they have to uphold. Which one matters more to them? and if this is to be Pep's last season, not that I'm saying that it should be, but you would want to go out on at least winning one title, either the Champions League again or the Premier League again. So with the current form, I think it's more likely for them to win the Champions League, because the Premier League is probably the most competitive it's been in many years.
Very true. Very true. And blatant example of that is elsewhere on Sunday, we saw Fulham beat West Ham 5-0. Now, remember, this is a West Ham team that has been playing pretty well. They are a European champion, Conference League, but still, it's a European trophy. And yet they got crushed here by West Ham, but West Ham got crushed here by Fulham. And this is actually Fulham's back-to-back 5-0 victory after beating Nottingham Forest 5-0 just a week ago. Interesting result. And then we also had some other fireworks going off on Sunday with Everton playing against Chelsea, surprising them, winning 2-0, dragging Everton out of the relegation zone. And then you also have Tottenham beating Newcastle 4-1. Kind of an interesting result there. Oscar, what is your take on these three matches here? Tons and tons of goals in the few matches here in Sunday in England.
Yeah, and well, outside of the Newcastle versus Tottenham game, a lot of lower half Premier League teams making noise. Yes, I'm saying Chelsea is in the lower half because that's where they are in the standings now, which is still funny to think about a team that has spent so much money languishing outside of the European spots. But I'll start with the Fulham versus West Ham game. This is a London derby, technically, and it did not seem close. So Fulham, I'll be frank, they started off the season in very patchy form. Marco Silva stayed on. He did a decent job in his first season there, and he was tempted by offers to go to the Saudi League, and he didn't go. And I thought that was a dumb choice personally, because I thought, well, you're not going to do better with Fulham. Like, this is such a, up and down squad. They're like, they flirt with like going down all the time. But no, he's managed to pick up some form. Beating Nottingham Forest, I didn't view as that impressive at first, because Nottingham Forest try to do what Man City do, and they rotate their squads all the time, but you can't do that with championship players and reject players from star teams in other leagues. It just doesn't work the same. So I didn't view it as that impressive then, but this game in particular was very fun to watch. So Raul Jimenez scored a brace. It was his first brace for Fulham. I mean, also just like his second and third goal of the season, and the goals were also pretty spread. So Harry Wilson got on the score sheet. Willian, at his age, got on the score sheet, which actually I think he's been Fulham's best player in the last 18 months, which is a very
I have to agree. He's been very good, surprisingly, after coming back from Brazil.
Yeah, but West Ham. So here's the scary point. So West Ham without Antonio and without so they didn't have Antonio, they didn't have Edson Alvarez, I believe, due to yellow card accumulation. Very big losses, and it was very noticeable. They were relying on Bowen at striker, which I think lately his best position is out on the right and cutting into the center, and clearly he could not take the weight of the team being at the number 9 position. Edson Alvarez, now I have a slight bias because he is a Mexican national team starter, probably a future captain, but no, they needed cover in the midfield, and Souček is getting up in age, and Ward-Prowse is just not a DM. He's definitely more of like a passer, free kick specialist player. So overall, I think West Ham just didn't have the squad for this game. They really didn't seem up for this game, and Fulham, not only are they not only did they have 2 back-to-back 5-0 wins, but they're boosting the confidence of players that really needed it, particularly Raul Jimenez, who, if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I thought that his time in Europe was over. And to now have 2 options of Raul Jimenez starting, and then Carlos Vinicius, the former Tottenham striker, who also scored very, very late in the game off the bench, both happy, both bagging goals, I think you couldn't ask for anything better, because Willian was definitely carrying a lot of that forward pressure for a long time, and if that just gets spurced out, Fulham, not this season, but maybe next season, maybe with like some more youth, which is probably what Marco Silva would want, could definitely spur on to a Europa Conference League challenge. And I think that this would probably be more than what the fans would expect from a team that is just known as a yo-yo club, if you ask me. For the other games, so we have Newcastle versus Tottenham. Ange Ball is still working. And Newcastle, I think, are starting to get figured out. Because look, at the end of the day, I think it boils down to this: Eddie Howe has worked miracles with players who, honestly, Newcastle have not spent that much money. Like, yes, it's been impressive that they've gone to the Champions League with the squad that they have, and like they have made some investments, but generally speaking, it's still a very similar team to the one that they had prior to the Saudi-backed takeover. I don't think the players have the legs to keep up with the same rhythm that they were keeping up with for the past like year and a quarter. So they're starting to get found out, and Ange Postecoglou is a very underrated manager. You know, he gets laughed at in the media for saying like, oh well, he's coached in Asia and Scotland. You know, he's not ready for this league. No, he's a character. He knows how to deal with the media. He knows how to deal with big characters as players. So he just seems like a no-nonsense manager, which I think is what Tottenham needed. They had that in Jose Mourinho and Conte, but these are no-nonsense managers with big personalities of their own. I don't think Ange is for that, which I think helps the brand of Tottenham. And it's seen on the field. They play very well. They don't have Europe to deal with, which I think is a big plus. And Newcastle was put into the Champions League group of death, which they're going to be prepping for, and they still have a chance to make it through. And the last game, if I remember correctly, was that the Everton-Chelsea game?
Yep. The shock result there.
Yeah. So I think the big story out of that is that Chelsea picked up 2 injuries. Sanchez, their goalie, and Mark Cucurella, their left back. Now, one might laugh and say, well, like, oh, but they just have, they have like 30 billion players, so it's totally fine. They don't have a backup goalie, actually. Robert Sanchez, he was Brighton's, he used to be their starter, then became their bench warmer, and was weirdly signed by Chelsea. But Chelsea, after Robert Sanchez got injured, they subbed on Petrovic, which is like one of their younger goalies, so not great. And then in terms of the goals that they had scored, spills from the back line, that happened in both of the goals. They were very unlucky to have them be scored on them, but at the end of the day, I think Everton should be proud of this result too, because with having a 10-point loss after violating FFP laws, they're coming back and they're no longer in the relegation zone. And Sean Dyche, all he really needs to do, because it's not like he has the best squad at hand and he can't really be signing that many more players, so all he needs to do is just avoid the drop, and he's going to be doing that. And if he keeps picking up wins against teams that are not necessarily weak on paper but weak-minded, which is what I think Chelsea is, I think he should be fine. He's a very experienced Premier League manager. He gets laughed at for just hoofing the ball, but he is actually exploring more tactics with this side, and that's clearly shown because both of the goals were just like on the ground volleys that were spilled by the Chelsea back line, which is a very unorganized back line. But at the end of the day, Chelsea still had chances, but it's mainly coming from their wingers, Mudryk and Sterling, which A, don't gel well together, B, should not be the one finishing the chances. We have to talk more about why Broja and Jackson, who, well, one is a youngster from Chelsea and the other one cost them however many million from Villarreal. Why are they not finishing more, right? So, but at the end of the day, the main story there is Chelsea have injuries and Everton are going to be avoiding the drop if they continue that form, despite a 10-point deduction early on in the season.
True, very true. I think it was a very fun weekend in the Premier League. Lots of fun results, lots of fun games to watch, especially as someone like a neutral myself that isn't really rooting for any team in the Premier League. It was some really good games. But let's move on to Spain. Let's move on to La Liga. And on Friday, we have a cracker of a match to start off here. And I say that in an almost ironic sense because we had Getafe versus Valencia, everyone's two favorite teams. Getafe, people have called them the Spanish Burnley. And then you have Valencia, who are probably going through, at least in terms of their player quality, the worst form they've been in maybe 20 years. But it ended up being a 1-0 result for Getafe after a very, very late goal from Borja Mayoral. There was also a red card for both teams. Duarte got sent off at the end in the 92nd minute. Gabriel Paulista also got sent off, and Javi Guerra also got sent off as well. So there's red cards flying around. If you look at the statistics, it is actually very interesting because, like I just said before, Getafe is known as this defensive team. They have this stereotype, and yet they had 68% of the possession, and they outshot Valencia 8 shots to 3. 6 of those 8 were on target. Meanwhile, Valencia had 0 shots on target. So it's a very young Valencia side. They've had some good results this season, but definitely not on Friday. That was a very, very poor performance from them. Then moving on to Saturday, we had Las Palmas defeating Alaves 1-0. Las Palmas has been slowly creeping back up the table. They are now in eighth spot, I believe. Then we also had a very, very important match. Real Betis going up against Real Madrid in Seville. Now, this was a very, very fun game to watch. I think that Real Betis was ultimately the better team for most of the match. They had more chances, they had more shots, but Real Madrid was able to hold on. They relied on some last-ditch defending and some heroics from the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper for them, who was Ludin, the stand-in for Kepa, who was injured, and also Kepa is a stand-in for Courtois as well, so this is essentially their third-string goalkeeper. He had to make some good saves, but Real Madrid, being typical Real Madrid, took the lead through Bellingham. Yet another goal from Jude. He did the famous celebration right in front of the Real Betis fans, and just as it was looking like Real Madrid were going to hold out for yet another strange and very, very typical Real Madrid victory, Aitor Ruibal scored an absolute cracker of a long shot from far out into the upper 90 in Real Madrid's goal to equalize 1-1. And then elsewhere, we had some shock results. For example, Villarreal got demolished 3-0 by Real Sociedad, who is in great form recently. They've been playing wonderful in all competitions, the Liga and the Champions League. They scored all 3 of the goals within the last 5 minutes of the first half. Marino, Zubamendi, and Kubo, 3 players who are all in great form, tore apart Villarreal. Villarreal, on the other hand, not having a great season at all. It's kind of fallen apart for them. I think this is kind of on themselves, though, for just chopping and changing managers. Then the last match on Saturday, we had Mallorca going up against Sevilla, where Mallorca, with a goal from Kyle Larin, the Canadian, early on in the match, scored, and they were all able to hold on to that 1-0 victory to inflict yet another defeat on Sevilla, who is having overall a very, very poor season as well. So, Oscar, what do you think of Friday and Saturday's matches in La Liga? I know everyone wants to talk about what happened between Barcelona and Girona, but before we get to that, what do you think of what has happened here in this first 2 days of the weekend in Spain?
So overall, because we did go through a lot of matches there, I think that this shook up the table for the better. I mean, look, I don't really have a particular horse in this race, right? To keep myself neutral, but I do think, okay, so Las Palmas winning, putting them in 8th. If I remember correctly, you can tell me if I'm wrong. This is a team that just got promoted this season.
Yes,
right?
yes, they just shot up from the second division.
Yeah, and their coach, I believe, has a good relationship with the Barcelona hierarchy. So, and they actually, I believe, have 2 players on loan from Barça Athletic. So, there's a good Barça relationship there.
And Mexico's own Julian Araujo.
Julian Araujo is there, who played no minutes for Barça B or the first team, but hey, he has been adapting well to Europe, even though, if you ask me, having a very mid MLS career. But in any case, Mallorca's victory is probably one that's not talked about too much. But Javier Aguirre is a Mexican coach. He coached Mexico during the 2010 World Cup, and he's been in charge of Mallorca for, I want to say, this is his third season going into the job, because he picked up Mallorca 2 seasons ago midway through. He kept them up with no money. Then the next season he was in charge, he had no money to spend, and then they lost their star player to PSG. I forget his name. The PSG Korean winger right now that they have.
I cannot remember his name either, but
yeah, him. So, but he's been signing like very bargain deals, and there were rumors of him losing his job. So maybe this recent victory, although it was only 1-0, it was against a Sevilla that, you're right, had poor form, but that may keep him in the job. And Kyle Larin scored, so it was a very good day for CONCACAF. A Mexican manager won, and the goal was from a Canadian striker. Lastly, I'll comment on I'll ask two questions about the Real Betis Real Madrid game. I want to ask you about the 10s. So, on one hand, you had Isco, who has really shown to have, turned into almost the Isco of old that we were used to, like in the Malaga days. I mean, not the same numbers that he had back then, but definitely he just looks more jovial. And then Modric was playing at the 10 for Real Madrid, and I kind of saw two stories in this game, but I'm curious as to what your thoughts were. What did you make of Modric's sort of legs in this game? And he's been asking to start more. Do you think he warrants it? And do you think Isco should be called back up for the Spanish national team after his season so far? Can you comment on the story of the 2 10s today?
That is a very, very interesting question, in particular the latter two. I hadn't even thought of that, but now pondering upon that, I think Isco wholeheartedly deserves a call up to the Spanish national team. I think he has been very, very good for Real Betis. Overall, Betis has had some glaring flaws this season. I think they aren't as high in the table as they should be, but they've still been able to pull out some great results, and Isco is at the heart of everything good that Betis has been doing. Just in this game in particular, he almost scored the winner with only a few minutes left. The flips and the tricks and all his stuff. It looks like we're back at prime Isco, whether it be the Real Madrid Isco where he was winning Champions Leagues or when he was starring for Malaga. I think almost this role for Isco fits better at Real Betis. Yes, he's not as young or maybe quick or free-flowing as he was when he was much younger at Real Madrid, but he has freedom. He has a nailed-on starting spot, which he did not have at Real Madrid. I think it is a joy watching him play, and I really, as a fan of the Spanish national team, I really hope he is called up, because I think he fully deserves it. As for Modric, he's 37 years old. I think that
he's pretty up there.
It's very up there for him in terms of his age. He's not been having a good season at all. I don't think he really changed my opinion of him that much in this match. He had it was either last week or the week before, he had a very good match, but it's these good performances are coming few and far in between. That being said, I think you see this after World Cup performances for Croatia, because after the 2018 World Cup where Modric led Croatia all the way to the final, he also had a very poor season immediately afterwards with Real Madrid, but then he was able to bounce back within a relatively short time as well. Granted, that was 4 years ago. It'll be interesting to see if next season Modric can bounce back with that. Now, him asking for a starting role, I think is contentious, because he's a legend. He has won everything possible with this club, both in terms of personal trophies and team trophies. But, I mean, you got to talk about Bellingham, man. Bellingham completely switches up the midfield formation there. Now it's like a diamond midfield. Also, I mean, you look across the field, Toni Kroos is also not starting as much either, so it's not like Modric is being singled out. You have new guys coming in, Tchouameni, Camavinga, they're getting phased into the team. Fede Valverde is already a part of the team as well. So I think this will be a question going into next season, even more pertinent, especially when you consider the possibility of Ancelotti leaving, maybe Xabi Alonso's coming in. That'll be a big problem for whoever it is next season to handle.
Yeah. With that, do you want to get into the Sunday games?
Okay. So moving on to Sunday, we had Atletico Madrid versus Almeria as one of the first games here. And I thought Atletico Madrid's performance in the first, 25 minutes was exquisite. It was one of the best performances that we've seen going forward, at least for Atletico Madrid, particularly when you look at Antoine Griezmann and Alvaro Morata, who I think you can make an argument this is so far Morata's best season, and Griezmann as well is having a really good season. They just, in terms of the link and play, it was beautiful. The just slick dribbling, the quick decision making for the first goal after the pass from Griezmann to the shot and the dribble from Morata to score going around the goalkeeper was beautiful to watch. And then similarly, the dribble that Morata had to assist Angel Correa's goal for the second looked great. At that moment, though, it looked as if Atletico Madrid would carry this momentum on and then have an absolutely crushing victory against Almeria, who are doing very poorly in terms of the standings. They are, in fact, the lowest ranked team in the Liga at the moment. And Atletico Madrid has racked up the goals before. I think it was Rayo Vallecano they beat 7-0. But interestingly enough, Atletico's performance tailed off at the end of the first half, and then they were nowhere to be found in the second half. And Leo Baptistao, the La Liga veteran, scored a rebound goal after kind of a snapshot from one of his midfielders to cut the deficit in half. And then Atletico really was rocking at the end. It was an interesting victory there for them. It ended up, still being a win for them, but it got a little too shaky at the end. And then we had very unfortunate scenes at the Granada versus Athletic Club match, where the match started off and Iñaki Williams scored first. Athletic looked to be holding onto a 1-0 lead, but the match was postponed and then eventually suspended and had to be replayed on Monday, which is earlier today as of recording, because of a death from one of the fans in the stands. Very, very unfortunate scenes. Obviously, rest in peace to the fan who has passed away. As of right now, I think only his first name has come out. It was a man named Antonio. So rest in peace to Antonio there. The match was resumed, like I said, earlier today as of recording, and there was a beautiful tribute from the players of both of the teams. This match ended up being a 1-1 draw, which leads Athletic Club into 5th place. They are only a few points behind Barcelona. Athletic Club have been having a very good season so far. I think they'd like to have nailed on a European spot, and this was a result that was not the best for Granada. They needed a win to kind of claw themselves out of the relegation battle, which they are second to last. Now on to the big game, Girona versus Barcelona. Now, obviously, I have lots of opinions on this match as a Barcelona fan, but Oscar, tell us what happened here.
So Barcelona lost 4-2 at home against a Girona who, I'll be honest, has seemingly come out of nowhere. I think they've ruined most people's La Liga predicted standings for earlier this season. And Girona, although they are part of the Man City group, it doesn't mean they have like the best quality players. Barcelona completely just let all their fans down, if you ask me. Goals were Barcelona, Robert Lewandowski, who got on the score sheet. I mean, it was in a loss, but to be fair, it's good on him because this is not the Lewandowski of Bayern Munich, Dortmund days. He did well to score the goals he did last season, but I think that we're starting to see his age, and we saw that in this game, despite the goals, actually, because he's just not really been hitting the back of the net too well. Some of the goals from Girona were from Dovbyk, Gutierrez, Valeri, and Stuani. Stuani, I know, is a veteran of the team. He's been with Girona when they were in the second division and back up. Actually, he was called up for Uruguay quite a few times. And then Barca's second goal came from İlkay Gundogan in the 92nd minute. What I have to say on the game, I think Barcelona was expected to win. These are two teams from the same region, so I guess there's like a little rivalry in that sense. But no, I don't think anyone had this result in mind. This takes Girona very prominently in first place. 2-point cushion on Real Madrid in second. Barcelona now in fourth, hanging on to their Champions League spot. They still have a 5-point cushion with Athletic Club, but if they keep letting up these types of results, they might not have that cushion for long.
Yeah, it's unfortunately very true. As a Barcelona fan, I have to admit that Barcelona was outplayed here. I think Girona fully deserved the win. But what angers me the most is that we've seen throughout the season Barcelona start off each of their matches with a lack of intensity, a very lethargic performance, and then that usually results in the opposing team taking the lead, only for Barcelona to wake up and then either grab an equalizer, maybe even push for a win. We didn't really see that in this match, interestingly enough, even though Barcelona came with a loss and they conceded the first goal. I think it was actually a very lively performance from Barcelona in the first 20 minutes. They played well. They had some really close chances. There was even a penalty shout there, but it was a silly defensive mistake. This time, Andreas Christensen completely missed the ball. And then that led to just a 2-on-1 or a 2-on-2. Dovbyk scores a very easy goal. Now, credit to Barcelona. Lewandowski, as you mentioned, was able to equalize with a very good header, which was good for his confidence. And it looked like Barcelona was going to regain the control of the match until, yet again, another defensive mistake, this time from the whole team, but mostly I think particularly on Jules Koundé. The player, Miguel Gutierrez, a left back, who, is a player that has been virtually unknown until this season. He had a shot already, which he almost scored with, and he was, playing very dangerously, and yet no Barcelona player picked him up. He had the ball, he dribbled straight at the goal, and then Koundé runs out of the way. He literally steps out of the way, gives Miguel Gutierrez the space to shoot, which he does, scores a very nice goal. And just like that, these two silly defensive mistakes, Barcelona is down 2-1 heading into halftime. I don't think there was enough of a push for Barcelona to really equalize. There was some chances that they created, but it looked a little disjointed. Rafinha and Lewandowski were often seen screaming at each other. There was disagreement over a free kick. And then yet another poor defensive mistake, this time from Ronald Araujo and Koundé together, led to the third goal from Valeri Fernandez. Great header from Stuani, came off the bench, and then a very simple, it looks simple, but it's actually a very good finish from, a very masterful finish from Valeri in the 80th minute. 3-1 to Girona. It looks like it's over, but Xavi shuffled the cards, some good substitutions, and I think that Ferran Torres was lively off the bench. He had a really good assist to İlkay Gundogan with his back to goal. He had a good flick and a very nice shot to make it 3-2. And this game could have been completely flipped on its head. Lamine Yamal sent in a wonderful cross, a beautiful cross to Lewandowski. He could have made it 3-3, but he fluffed his lines. The header came off his shoulder. It was a terrible header. For all the work that Lewandowski did to regain his confidence for the header in the first half, I think all of it came crashing down with this terrible miss. And then to make matters even worse, Christian Stuani then put the nail in the coffin, scoring the fourth goal there. Again, the defending on that goal was atrocious. Balde was playing as a center back in defense, despite him being a left back, and then João Cancelo was on the field playing as the left back. Very strange formation at the end from Xavi. I understand that you're trying to go for it, but the attack, which has been a problem for Barcelona in recent weeks, was not the issue here for the most part. I mean, they scored 2 goals. They had 31 shots. It's just these silly defensive mistakes, which is embarrassing for Barcelona. But then on Girona's point of view, I think it was a perfect performance from them. They played really, really well. Dovbyk, Stuani, if you look at Eric Garcia, Daley Blind, their goalkeeper, whose name is running out of my head, every single player played well. Now they are top of the table. And it is, we're nearing Christmas. We're nearing the midway point of the season. They are top of the table. That is insane.
Yeah. I guess the 2 questions that I have there is that, can they keep it up? And then when it comes to Barcelona, what's the issue here? Is it the players on the field? Is it management? There have been some talks about Xavi potentially stepping aside and then having a fill-in coach for the rest of the season. So just the 2 questions, do you see Girona at least maybe getting a Champions League spot, and should Barca try and tinkle some other things around either on or off the field?
So as for Girona, they have been wonderful up until this point. They have not only been racking up wins, but they've been playing some beautiful football. They've smashed teams, putting 5 goals, 6 goals past certain teams, 4 goals. They've come from behind in some very tough games. They've had to face some adversities. That being said, they played Barcelona here. They beat them, but if you compare their games to the previous, top 6 opposition, they drew Athletic Bilbao and they got destroyed 3-0 by Real Madrid. The result flattered Real Madrid a little bit, but still was a convincing performance from Real Madrid. They have yet to play Atletico Madrid. They have yet to play some of these other big teams, so it'll be interesting to see. I think it is a little too early to call. But just to be realistic, I don't think that they'll end up winning the league. I think it's a Champions League spot is pretty much nailed on. What I envision happening at this point is probably Real Madrid wheeling away after maybe some poor results from Girona, maybe even Atletico or Barcelona topping Girona. But I think they will at least finish within the top 4. As for Barcelona, I think it is a multifaceted issue here. I think Xavi is still a very young manager. I think he's making some mistakes with his substitutions, with his squad selection. I also think that there's maybe a little bit of a burnout. This team, for the most part, is very young. Some of these guys aren't the most experienced. It was a very tough season last year. And I think some of these players are just having an off year. And then it's not even the young players as well. There's also been a series of injuries. Gavi is out for the entire season. Lewandowski missed a considerable amount of time with an injury, as did Frankie de Jong, as did Araujo, as did Pedri, as did, I believe, Jules Koundé as well. So there's been a lot of chopping and changing. I think that Barcelona should stabilize as the months go on. I think I really hope for a decent run in the Champions League, but it's not looking likely that they'll win the league. And I think a lot of it has to do with just, I think, the players being inexperienced and having a burnout. I think, if anything, that's probably the main cause of it. But let's move on to Serie A. Let's move on to the Italian league here. And we had some interesting games, especially on Friday. We started off the weekend with a great game. We had or at least 2 big teams going up against each other. We had Juventus versus Napoli, which was a very, very back and forth game. There was chances at both ends of the pitch. I think Napoli going into this really, really needed a win. Unfortunately, they were not able to grab that here, as Juventus ended up winning 1-0. There were some very close chances, as I mentioned, from both teams, but Juventus at the end of the day was much more clinical. It was a goal from Gatti, his second winner after scoring the winner against, I believe it was Monza last weekend. He had a very nice header here after a wonderful cross. Not the most perfect performance from Juventus, but a very important performance for Juventus, considering they are now second place. Elsewhere on the next day, on Saturday, we had Verona being able to nick a 1-1 draw with Lazio despite them getting a red card. Very important draw from Verona, and not the best result from Lazio, who aren't doing that well in Serie A at the moment. We also had Inter Milan come away with a very convincing 4-0 result over Udinese. Çalhanoğlu scored, DeMarco scored, Thuram scored, and Lautaro Martinez scored. All four of these players are having very, very good seasons. Lautaro Martinez in particular, I think, is the best player in Serie A this season and one of the best strikers in the world. He has 14 goals and 4 assists in 15 games. Crazy results there. I think, in my opinion, and I've said this before on this channel many times before, Inter are by far the best team in Italy. The most interesting result of the, I think, Saturday in Serie A was Atalanta going up against AC Milan, however. This was a game that, you would expect Milan to win, even though they're playing away from home, considering Atalanta have not been as good this year as they have been in previous seasons. Lookman scored. He has been having a great season. He opened the scoring. Now, Giroud was able to equalize, only for Lookman to score again in the second half. But Luka Jovic, who has been kind of having a resurgence in the past few weeks for Milan, was able to equalize yet again. It was 2-2. It looked like it was going to stay at 2-2 until Luis Muriel came off the bench and scored the winner in the 95th minute with a back heel to score his first goal of the season. Virtually no time left for Milan to equalize or to hold on to any sort of results. Great win for Atalanta there. Oscar, what do you think of these matches here in Saturday and Friday of Serie A?
So, as a quick sum up, I just want to follow up on what you said about how Napoli and Lazio are having very disappointing seasons so far. I mean, look, Napoli is a recent champion and they're languishing in 7th. Lazio, they also finished in a Champions League spot, and although they'll be advancing to the round of 16 in their Champions League group, which was pretty competitive, they're 10th. Like, they are mid-table right now. But when it comes to what those results mean for the teams on the other end of this, Juve in particular, they are pulling away with Inter. They both, I believe they're Juve is 7 points clear of third place AC Milan, and this early on in the season, I think that is the start of signs to tell that it's going to be a top 2 race to see who wins Serie A this season. Although I think, obviously, I do want to see these other teams come back into the mix, but I just think with a 7-point distance between second and third right now, it's not really much of a conversation. In reference to Saturday's games, I think Milan, look, I still find them a very exciting team to watch. Look, if you put Pulisic and Leao on any team, I'm going to be very excited. 2 very pacey, skillful players, very talented players. Giroud still scoring. I do like the narrative about Luka Jovic coming back. He had a mild comeback for Fiorentina after being loaned there from Real Madrid, and I don't know if they bought him fully or how he got to AC Milan, but I think it was about 13 goals in 50 games. That's not bad, and I do think that AC Milan need to transition away from Olivier Giroud, and hopefully this is a way to do it. I mean, hey, look, he didn't get signed by Real Madrid for nothing, so hopefully this actually ends up working out for them. Atalanta, very impressed with them. Ademola Lookman could not do it for Leicester, but can do it for a team who is currently 8th and has honestly been really impressive so far in the past couple match weeks. Going forward, I think AC Milan will probably still bounce back. Inter has been really impressive so far this season, not only just in Europe but in Serie A. So I don't fully echo the. I don't think Lautaro Martinez is the greatest Argentine striker right now, because Mauro Mauro Icardi is doing pretty well in Galatasaray, but
This
I'm
is
gonna
true.
keep my
Okay.
bias out of it. I'm gonna keep my bias out of it and just say that since he's doing it in a top 5 league, that he definitely warrants starting for Argentina, and he is probably on his way to the Golden Boot right now. So that's just my summary of like what I get from the last weekend in Serie A.
Yeah, and I agree that it's pretty much a top 2 race. I think it could have been, Inter absolutely running away with it if Juventus weren't able to grab that crucial 1-1 draw. I believe that was either last week or the week before against Inter. Initially going into the season, I thought that it was going to be a 2-horse race between both the Milan teams. And while Milan has had some good performances, I don't think they're clinical enough. I don't think they have been able to turn those performances, all those good performances, into wins. And as you mentioned it, they're already falling 7 points behind Juventus, who, on the flip side, haven't had the best performances, but have been able to, collect the points, shore up the wins. And then Inter, on the other hand, is tying together both very great performances, individual player performances that are, the best in the league, and being very clinical, being very professional. As for the games on Sunday, to be honest, there wasn't really a whole lot to look at besides the fact that Bologna was able to beat Salernitana 2-1, which sees them leapfrog Lazio in 5th place, which is very interesting. Good result for Bologna. And then Fiorentina against Roma is probably the last game we're going to talk about here in Serie A. It was a rather funny game because Lukaku scores in the 5th minute. And then it looks like typical Jose Mourinho, Italian team, they just look to park the bus and sit back and defend, because throughout the entirety of the match, Roma had 4 shots, one of them on target, and that was that goal from Lukaku. But it didn't really pay off. I don't think this Roma team has the defensive solidity to fully be a typical Jose team, at least in Serie A. There was a red card in the 64th minute for Roma, and then only 2 minutes later, Lucas Martinez Quarta scores an equalizer for Fiorentina. There was actually another red card in the match in the 87th minute from Lukaku, funnily enough. But Roma was able to hold on for a draw and not concede a second. It is kind of I would say, a poor performance or poor result for them, considering they have been winning their previous games. They started off the season pretty poorly. Now they are in 4th, which is a good return. But moving on from there, let's go on to Germany. Let's go on to the Bundesliga. And I don't want to spend too much time on the Bundesliga and later on the French League, Ligue 1, but there was some interesting games here. We had on Saturday, we had a game that ended up being a 5-1 victory between Eintracht Frankfurt and Bayern. And before you think it was Bayern that won 5-1, it was actually Eintracht Frankfurt that won 5-1. Oscar, tell us what happened in this game. How could the team that has Harry Kane and Leroy Sané and Gnabry and Philipp Lahm, or not Phil, I don't know why I said Philipp Lahm. I meant Kimmich.
Well, he would have helped.
He would have helped. How did they concede 5 goals to Eintracht Frankfurt? Not just 5 goals, but 3 goals in the first half to an Eintracht Frankfurt side that is, they're not even in the top 6. They're 7th. How did this happen?
No. So, and funny enough, this is one of these other games where the scoreline does not tell you how the match went. So, Bayern Munich nearly had 2/3 of the ball. They had, I believe, 20 shots at goal. 4 of them were on target. And there's your problem. They just weren't clinical. Harry Kane skied to, I believe Sané also skied 1. Like, it's really poor. Neuer also, and I don't really mean to, I don't want to be mean to the guy because he came back from a year-long injury. I forget what exactly.
Yeah, he broke his leg, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I don't want to be too mean to the guy. He's also in his late 30s, but reaction time's horrible, and particularly on diving down. So there were 2 goals that looked pretty much identical. One was at his bottom right corner in the first half. The other one was at I guess it was struck towards the middle of the goal, and he had to dive to his left. he can't spread his legs fast enough and dive down to both of them. That's really like the main error that he had. But I don't want to take anything away from Frankfurt. I don't want to make it seem like Bayern only lost because their stars were skying it and not able to dive. Frankfurt had a really impressive game, and look, they were up 3-0 in the first 36 minutes. Joshua Kimmich did come in to score a goal right at the end of the first half, and it was a pass from Sané. But then you had the start of the first half, and within an hour it was done. 2 more goals from Frankfurt, and then honestly could have been more. Man of the match was Omar. I can't ever say his last name, but Marmouche. Is that how you pronounce it?
I believe it's Marmouche, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, he was the man of the match. Another Egyptian player that I honestly didn't know much about prior to this season, but he's been quietly having a impressive season. 7 goals and 3 assists. I believe 3 of those goals coming in this match alone. Pardon. 1 goal, 1 assist in this game. I don't know why I thought he had a hat trick in this game, but in any case, yeah. The only thing that is curious though is that Bayern Munich are spicing up the league, and I think that's another thing that we can take away. If they can suffer a loss like this to Frankfurt, when this is honestly probably the most star-studded Bayern Munich side that I can remember in a while, front line of Gnabry, Harry Kane, and Sané with Muller at the 10, Kimmich, Neuer, etc. The most star-studded team I've ever seen them have. If they manage to lose this to Bayer Leverkusen, who prior to Xabi Alonso coming in was flirting with going down, I think it'd be a great story to tell. I mean, Bayer Leverkusen is, I don't want to paint them as a narrative like they don't deserve to be up here. They have great youth talent. They are managed really well right now, and so far they are earning being top of the table. But Bayern Munich needs to revert course because they have invested more than they ever have in their squad. They have a great manager, so they have no excuse but to not go for a double this season, and results like these are not double winning form right now.
Yeah, and I've heard this joke before that, this is not really cause for concern because this is just Bayern's annual loss to Frankfurt or Mönchengladbach or like Hoffenheim or something. I think that if you look at the way that Bayern play, such a high line, with such high intensity, when it doesn't work or when a team finds out how to counter that, let's say a few of the players are fatigued or it's been a long match week because they have Champions League or something, it when it falls apart, it completely shatters. That's why you see a 5-1 result here. In every season, Bayern has one of these games. I tend to agree with that this isn't necessarily cause for concern in the sense that I don't think Bayern is, going to lose their next 3 games or anything like that. But on the flip side, when Bayern loses one of these games like this, they already have like a 2, 3, 4, 5 point lead at the top of the table. In this case, they do not. There has been a serious title challenge here from Leverkusen, obviously, and then even from Stuttgart to a lesser extent. Speaking of those 2 teams, we also had some interesting results between Stuttgart and Leverkusen, who played each other on Sunday. Ended up being a 1-1 draw. I think this was just a wonderful game to watch. Both these teams showed up to play. It was very back and forth. I think a 1-1 draw, to be honest, is a little fair because I don't think either team was that much better than the other. For example, Stuttgart had 22 shots. Bayer Leverkusen had 18 shots. I think they both played well. There was also some other results. Union Berlin, who had such a great season last year, but are having a terrible season this year, was able to come up with a win against Borussia Mönchengladbach. And then we had a big matchup between Borussia Dortmund and RB Leipzig. Dortmund, who have been playing wonderful in the Champions League, they topped their group. That has not really translated to the Bundesliga. They have not been having great results in the Bundesliga. I think a lot of it probably has to do with the pressure. They have, so much pressure on them to perform in the Bundesliga, especially with the capitulation that they had last season versus they don't really have much pressure at all in the Champions League. This match here was also hindered by the fact that Mats Hummels got sent off in the 15th minute. I think Leipzig had this game in the bag ever since that red card. Convincing performance from Leipzig. For example, the second goal that Dortmund scored was a consolation goal in the 93rd minute there. But back to Stuttgart, Leverkusen, and Bayern. When you take a look at the table, Stuttgart's in third, only 1 point behind Bayern. And then with a 4-point gap, or 4-point cushion, you have Bayer Leverkusen in a top spot. Now, granted, Bayern's game last week was postponed because of a snowstorm. So if they were to play that match, though, they'd be up still 2 points behind Bayer Leverkusen because of this recent loss. Is this the Harry Kane curse? Is Bayern going to... They've already been eliminated from, I believe it was the Pokal. And, winning the Champions League is never easy. Is this the Harry Kane curse? Is Harry Kane coming to Bayern Munich going to make them go trophyless for the first time? And they lost the German Super Cup final as well.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to bring that up too.
Yeah,
it was the first opportunity for him to win anything.
And he loses. Granted, he didn't play. He came off the bench with 20 minutes left. But in a more serious note, do you think that Bayer Leverkusen can actually pull this off?
So, I love an underdog story. Personally, I'd rather Stuttgart do it because it reminds me of the Stuttgart of I believe it was the 2007 season that, had Pardo and Ricardo Osorio, two Mexican national team starters, who somehow got to lift, a league title in Germany. But Bayer Leverkusen, look, between Wirtz, who's been insane, Granit Xhaka, who I did not think that at his age and going back to a very physical league was going to be able to keep up his performances, has been doing pretty well. Xabi Alonso, if he does this, the only reason why I don't want them to win the league too is that I think Xabi Alonso will definitely leave if that happens, and I'm not sure if a manager as raw as he is, although he's a very brilliant man, I don't think that he is ready for the Real Madrid, Bayern Munich job, which everyone wants to throw him to. Hey, look, it's not even that. He could go to Liverpool, Real Madrid, a club of his choosing, all clubs that he's played for. I just don't know if we should be rushing him into that. And as far as the Harry Kane curse, just to touch on that briefly, look, Harry Kane on his own right has been having a wonderful season. Which I did not think he would be able to gel well into a new league, a new culture, new players, and honestly do way better than I would have ever expected him to. I think Bayern will make a serious run in the Champions League, so if that sort of calms the worries of Bayern Munich fans, I do see one or the other. Definitely not a double though, but I do see one or the other, and then Harry Kane will lift his first trophy. It was only made worse by the fact that when Harry Kane did miss the opportunities to win trophies, when he lost the Shield and then got knocked out of the Cup, Tottenham was top of the league when that stuff was happening.
Yeah.
So that's why it looked really bad. But no, I don't think he's cursed. I think it'll be an either-or situation for Bayern Munich.
Yeah, I think the saddest part of a hypothetical trophyless season from Bayern Munich is that it will be 100% not of Harry Kane's fault. As you mentioned, he's having a wonderful season. If they somehow fumble the Bundesliga and they get eliminated in the Champions League, it won't be because of Harry Kane, not scoring enough goals.
It's because of the back line, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
They have a really leaky back line. Besides, they have Kim and Upamecano as the main center back pairing, right? Lately.
Yeah,
which cost them a lot of money. Two very talented players. Also, you have Fonzie on the left, Davis. I just call him Fonzie. Who's their right back? Is it
against
Marzawi?
Yeah, against Frankfurt it was Marzawi.
Yeah, I've not been too convinced by him
No.
in a Bayern Munich shirt. I don't think he's up to task, but I don't know who else they would play there. I guess you could do Kimmich at right back if you really needed to, but I don't think that's where they're at right now.
Yeah, I think he's better suited for the midfield. Anyway, moving on to Ligue 1 in France. There isn't a whole lot to talk about here, but we will briefly look over some of the games here. We had the top three of France. You had Monaco, Nice, and PSG all coming away with 2-1 victories. You had Monaco defeating Rennes 2-1 with a goal from Vanderson and a goal from Youssef Fofana, both assisted by United States' own Florian Balogun. Then elsewhere, you had PSG come away with a 2-1 win over Nantes. A bit of a shaky win, to be honest, not the most secure win that they were looking for. A goal from Barcola and a goal from Kolo Muani. That goal was actually a winner in the 83rd minute after the score was equal for most of the game. And then you had Nice coming away with a 2-1 win over, I can never pronounce this team, Reims.
Stade Reims. I mean, that's also not how you say it, but yes.
Yeah.
That one. Yeah.
And one thing to talk about, I guess, that is very important is that Lyon, who's been having an absolutely awful season, they are literally statistically the worst team in Ligue 1. As I've said many times on this channel before, they came away with not only a victory, but a very good victory against Toulouse or Toulouse, however you pronounce it. Lacazette scored a hat-trick. His first two goals were only 4 minutes apart in the first half. Very good performance, individual performance from Lacazette, as well as a good team performance from Lyon. And I guess for Lyon's sake, as funny as it will be to see them get relegated, it's not good to see a team as big as Lyon get relegated, especially in the context of the French league, where you have, from one perspective, PSG just buying up the league, and then the historic biggest team going down. And then I guess I forgot to mention as well, Marseille did come away with a 4-2 win over Lorient. Great performance from Aubameyang. 2 goals and an assist. Both the goals that he scored were very good. And then also a goal from Benjamin Mendy for Lorient, who is being, I guess, ushered back into the football world after that whole controversy, which we won't get into. But Oscar, what is your thoughts on the weekend here in Ligue 1? What are your thoughts on, I guess, PSG's unconvincing win, but it probably means they're going to win the league again?
So, first narrative that I see, it's a good day to be a former Arsenal striker.
Very true.
Yeah, one got a hat trick and one got a brace and a assist. So that's just pretty curious. They couldn't do it in an Arsenal shirt, or at least not for the entire time that they were there. But go back to France and they're just tearing it up. Lyon, I don't want to see them go down. I grew up with a Lyon of like Lloris, Juninho, and Lisandro Lopez. Like those are like the 3 players I remember growing up around like the 2009 to 2012 era, and they were great to see. Juninho in particular had great free kicks and. Not too much skill by the time that I caught him, but it was obviously quality. I don't want to see them go down. Them beating Toulouse 3-0 is really good, because then Toulouse is going to get dragged into the relegation dogfight. I believe they already are. Let me just confirm. Yeah, they're 15th, so they are flirting with the relegation playoff position. So Lyon's they're only 3 points away from safety as of now, so it's not impossible. I do believe in the back to health plan that they can muster up. And you're right, it just takes away competition from a league which is already called a farmers league. I don't think that's accurate, but we don't want to make it easier for PSG, which we're already seeing them act like it's easy right now, because the way that they just sort of beat Nantes with really low effort and play. PSG still sit comfortably top of the league with 36 points, 4 goal difference from Nice in second place, and Monaco is in third with 30 points. What also is really worrying to see, though, is that I'm not convinced with them either in the league or in Europe too much either. They are in the group of death, but that doesn't really give them much of a reason to not try as hard. Just given the fact that they're under a new coach, they're still spending an outrageous amount of money. I finally see the name of the player though that I was trying to figure out earlier, who used to play for Mallorca. Yeah, it was Kim. But yeah, it's like, you know, they're making signings like that are less like star-studded, but I still think they're gonna walk comfortably into winning the league this season.
Yeah, which, I mean, you know, not to show my bias, but rather unfortunate. Would be cool to see, you know, a Monaco resurgence or at least someone else. But anyway, That has been the recap of Europe's top 5 leagues for this weekend. Let us know what you guys think in the comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? We've dropped some hot takes. Not a whole lot. There's been a few hot takes. Let us know what you think of those. Make sure to like and subscribe. Share this video with a friend. Oscar, as always, it is great having you on the channel. Of course, we would love to have you back again for these types of videos or any types of videos.
Yeah, no, I would love to do it. It was great fun. You know, it gives anyone a good reason to keep up with the games more.
Very true, and I can say that with personal experience. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. This has been the Football Block. I hope you guys have a nice rest of your night.